Module 4, Tutorial D, we are going to make a Scrolly map. And we're going to use a template, right? There's a template that was created by Mapbox, which I had you create a account for. And Mapbox ultimately is a web mapping platform. They have their own JavaScript and CSS library to help you build projects. And now we're going to be using a template that implements those that they put together and also adds another JavaScript library called Scrollama, which is a popular one for scroll-based events. So yeah, we'll just go through it. So go ahead and go to download the zip of the code, right? And I'm just going to, well, it's going to take a second to download because it's a little large. And while it's doing that, well, there it is, it's done. So here we go. Let's put that on our desktop. I'm going to unzip it. I'm going to throw away the zip here. I'm going to take this and I'm going to just work in this folder right here. Whoops, that keeps going to my desktop there. I'm just going to call it scroll map. You know, nothing too complicated. And then I'm going to open that and look what's inside. So I know for a fact, because I've already read, right, this has pretty good documentation on this page. It's not perfect, but we don't need the license, the README, all of this stuff. You can look at those if you really want to, but I'm just going to clean those out. So I just have index config assets. And then I'm going to drag that into VS Code to open that folder. And I'm going to go ahead and, well, close all this stuff because I hate that stuff. I'm going to, well, I'll just select index.html. Now we can look at what's in there real quick, right? We see where it's calling for, you know, some things here, right? This is their library, JavaScript library, their CSS library. This is something else that if we want an inset, we could always take that out since we actually aren't going to use that. Here's that scrollama I talked about. Then we have this style, right? So we could actually go ahead and edit this as we want to later on if we don't like the default styles. And then after this, the HTML, right, we have this map, the story. This is really important here. This is, it's grabbing your config, right, which is going to just be a data, JSON data object. And then after that, this is all the code they wrote that makes this whole thing work. And so it's likely you're not going to touch much on index other than the CSS. Now there is an opportunity to add something called callbacks that you could write those if you needed to. You could also add new HTML elements. We don't need to do that. We're going to use it in its most basic way. So let's go live and check it out. Okay, so here we are live, and note, you know, nothing's really working here. Why is that? It's because, well, it requires you to have a Mapbox token. Mapbox isn't totally free. So if you log into Mapbox, you'll see, right, kind of these like services and how much you get for free. So it's like you can load your maps, you know, 50,000 free loads. I don't know if that's a month. That might be a month too, right? So there's a lot of free stuff you can do for a bit. And then, again, I think it resets every month. Yeah, current billing period, right? So gives you plenty of free stuff, especially with our education logins. So we need to make a page work, you have to put in a token. So let's go to our tokens, and I'm going to have to blur this out because, you know, someone would be able to steal my tokens on YouTube. So these are basically your secret, like, keys to go ahead and get these things working so it can, you know, track who's using it. So go up to create a token. We'll make this one, right, scroll map, you know, or M4D, just so I mark it for myself because I have other things. Now we could just leave it at that and say create the token, but usually you want to, like, just, you know, make sure you restrict it at least by the URL, just in case someone else gets your token, and especially because we're going to probably put it up on GitHub at some point to serve it. We need to put in so it only shows in certain places. So I'm going to put in localhost because we want to be able to use it to test it. and I'm going to put in my GitHub, and you can do the same. Put your GitHub pages, right? So mine is kevinripka-uiowa.github.io, right? So that's my pages, and that way we'll be able to use it in an iframe, right? We may be serving it on the tilde page, but in an iframe, it's going to our GitHub pages. So that looks good to me. Let's create our token. You'll have to put in your password again, right? Anytime you do any of this stuff. And then go to our token, right? This is mine. I'll copy it. And let's go back to VS Code. Let's go to config.js. Where it says access token, and I'll explain all of this later, but let's just place it here for a second. Hit save. And now when we go back, allegedly it should work. Localhost isn't working. Oh, what if I just tried typing in localhost? There it goes. All right, so it didn't like the numbers. I don't know why. It should work. But there we go. So now I'm on localhost, and so now you'll see. Oh, here it goes. We've got our map working. So now, if we wanted to just do points like this is doing points, we could really just use this as is and start configuring this object. But I'm going to have you actually use some custom data to show you how to use Mapbox a little more fancily, if that's a word, right? So let's leave all this as is for right now, and let's jump back to Mapbox. And what you want to do is go to the style editor. So here's style editor. So we're going to add a new style. Now here we could like pick any kind of base map that it has, right? If we wanted to do satellite imagery, monochrome imagery, you know, these different things. There's some other stuff here. You could design your own with, you know, go in and change what things look like. Let's just go ahead and use standard right as our starting point, and we'll hit customize. Okay, so here we have right, our map, right? There are just standard styles. So this is like the standard style, these greens, the way it looks there. We are going to, and we still have a chance to change it, right? We could like change to the standard satellite, and we can do other things, right? We can turn off place labels, right? You know, just various things you could do, but we don't need to. Let's just leave it at default. What we care about are these layers here. So I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to add a custom layer. So we need to go over here to upload data, and in your downloads from icon, so you'll have to make sure you have the downloads from icon. Let's start with this breedingrange.geojson. So I'm going to put that in there, right? And there we see the actual data that is in there. And I'm going to change the color. I'm going to, so right now you see, I'm going to take that color, I'm going to make it more of I don't really like the way this works, but generally breeding ranges in bird field guides are orange. So I'm going to kind of follow that convention and put that there. I don't want a stroke on it, so I'm just going to simply drag this so that it goes to 0 as far as the stroke. I hate, as you know, I don't like strokes. I don't even know exactly how to change the stroke width. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. Now, one weird thing I'm also going to do, I've got that and I love it, but I'm actually going to take this opacity and drag it down to 0. And that's because we want to help it when it's starting our thing. But the last thing I want to do is make sure I change the name, right? So I'm going to click up here. I'm going to say breeding-range, right? And that's going to be the name I use in the script to call this data layer. Then I'm going to do the same 3 more times. So I'm going to go make a custom, or 2 more times, make a custom layer, right? I'll take the winter range. There's our winter range. I'll use the convention of blue, right? Blue is for winter, right? Brr. Sure, that color's good to me. Same thing, I hate the strokes. I'm going to get rid of them. Do you absolutely have to? No, I just want to. I'm going to make sure I change the name over here. So this is winter-range. Make sure you're naming them these ways. And then I'll just take the opacity and I'll just drag it down here. And the last one I'm going to do is going to be, instead of areas, it's some lines that I drew in GeoJSON that are the migration routes, or migration route. So I'll go ahead here and I'll just say migration route, right? You see I've already done this, that's why it's auto-filling. I am going to try to change the width. Here's an easier one to change the width here. So when I click on this, again, I don't fully understand this thing here. Can we just make this just linear? I don't know. I'm just going to bring this up until the map actually looks like what I want it to look like. Right? So there's that. You know, that looks good enough to me. Let's change the color. I don't know. Any color you feel like. I'm going to go to maybe just like a purpley, like this kind of color. Sure, that's great. And of course, I'm going to take my opacity, bring it down to nothing, just like we did before. So now we have migration route, winter route, breeding range, all done. Did we ever name our project? And right here we have, it says standard. We better just name this and just be like neotropical birds, right? That's going to be what our thing's about. So I just wanted to change the name real quick at the end there. And so the last thing we have to do is publish our map so that we can use it. I'm just going to close this right here. So if we just go up here and say save and publish, right, we'll publish it. It says there's 3 new tile sets, right? So it's going to turn these into tile sets. We just hit publish, right? And so now if you get an error, just refresh it. Sometimes you get little errors and things, right? So we will just let it process. It might take a minute or two. See, you got that error. So when it does that, you let it refresh, go back up to publish, or maybe it's actually trying to fix itself here. Again, I've just had some troubles with this. But anyway, while that's publishing, we'll come back to that. Let's jump back to our code. And let's actually get rid of everything except for your access token, because we're going to go through the documentation all the way here. So what we have left is, right, we have this variable called config, right, which better, more modern would be let. You don't have to change that. Var still works. It's inside of this object, and then we have our access token. So I'm going to, so I don't have to keep blurring my screen, just try to get that off the screen and then write the rest of this. Okay, so again, doesn't matter what order you put things in an object. So let's go back to our documentation and start looking up here. So in our config, so this will tell you a little bit about just how to do it, right? We already know that from working here. We want to, well, this goes right through. Let's just actually go through with it, right? So it's telling you how to do it, right? So first add your token, right? Select the map style you want. Okay, we got to go select our map style. So I'm going to go up to here, up to here, and say, well, we need to get our map style. Oh, it's too busy publishing here for me to get my map style. Let's see if it's in here. No, it's not in there. We need to wait till we can get our everything's published to get that. So let's come back to that in a moment. Let's jump to the next of these, right? You see all these other ones. So if we just jump down to our documentation, you'll see this is our configuration object. So these are the main things in there. So a really important one is style, except for you actually, well, it says it's required, but you could actually not put it in there and it'll use the standard style. But we want to point to that custom data map. Are you up? Oh, here it is right here. Nope, it's still not done. So let's go to the next one. Access token required. Show markers. So we saw in that last project, show markers was true and you were seeing the little like icons. We don't want that in our story. So we're going to go back over here. We're going to say show markers false, right? Even though this says that this takes a string, it actually takes a Boolean, right? A string is in quotes. These are reserved keywords, true and false. Since we don't have markers, we don't have to do show marker color. Theme, right? Two basic themes, light and dark. That's just what the background and text colors are in the little things that come up. We can say theme, right? And now this is a string, so we'll say light. Great. Use 3D terrain. Well, let's just skip that. Inset, we're not going to use an inset. Let's skip that. Projection, we're just going to leave it at its standard Mercator projection or global, whatever it does. Auto, we'll let it automatically go through the chapters. Don't need that. Title, subtitle, byline, and footer, right? That's all stuff built into that template that if I wanted to put some kind of a title, subtitle in that, I could. So let's do that. Title, and this is about the dangers of being a neotropical migrant, right? That's the name of my thing. Remember, commas, right? And what was the other one? Subtitle. I'll just put a subtitle. We don't need the rest of it. Actually, footer, we should put citations and stuff, but, we'll skip that too. Subtitle, right? So neotropical birds face lots of obstacles as they migrate from South America to North America, right? Like something like that. Great. I gotta stop throwing my token. I'll hit save. Let's see what's going on over here, right? So right now, map's not up. I think maybe then you can't leave the map blank. I'm not even sure what's going on here. Properties for each. What we don't have is chapters, right? That's why it's probably choking. Let's find this. Okay, so we have publish here. Where do we get our? Still, one of them didn't publish, right? So I got to keep hitting that. Again, I don't know what the problem is here. Then where is our settings here? There we go. Settings. Clear completed. I saw the settings. I got them already. Well, now that's blocked, so I can't see that. I'm going to go back to my home while that's doing and see if I can just grab it some other way here. No, I can't. Okay, going back in here. It's still publishing. Oh, share. Duh. So here's share. And so this is where I need this right here. This is my style URL, right? This is where I get it. So there's my thing copied. And now I'll put above show markers style right there. Make sure I have a comma after it. And over here, I'll put chapters. Now, chapters is an array. So I have to have, right, we learned arrays. They're just in these little brackets, and it's going to be an array of objects, right? So I'll hit save. Now let's see how we got going on here. Still a problem. I think until we actually get a chapter, we're not going to be able to view anything, right? So your styles, right, again, you have to get it through share. I forgot that, even though I just did this, not even, I don't know, in the beginning of the day to record this video. I'm still waiting for this to publish, right? So I'm just going to let it roll while we move on. So let's go to, okay, we're going to tell a story. So you should have your story kind of plotted out here. And so let's look at what a chapter looks like. So if we take, here we go, right here. So back to our thing here. So we say chapter is an array of objects. It contains all the story content and map controls for each section of the story. So a chapter is going to be an object. Each individual chapter is going to be an object, right? We can see in the examples, what a chapter looks like right here, right? So we don't have to use all the things because there's always smart defaults. You just need to use the things that are required and that you want to set, right? So we see here, we have to have an ID. We have to have an alignment. Is it, the center of the page, left, right, full? You can hide a layer so that you are only showing the map and you don't actually show any text with it. Then, right, we can put some information in it. This is what the person sees for the story. So there can be like kind of your H3 element, an image to put in there that's going to come after the H3 element, and a description, which will actually still support any kind of HTML you want to put in there. You have to have a location, right? That'll give us information about where to be on the map. You have a map animation type. It defaults to fly to. You could change it to ease to or jump to, but I tell you what, for this type of map, you definitely want to just leave the default as fly to, so we're never even going to have to set that really. Rotate animation, that'll just like, you see what it says. It starts a slow random animation when we get to that spot on the map. Callback is where we can get real fancy, where we write our own JavaScript and make it do something once we get to that point in the map. We don't need that. On chapter end is great. We're going to use this heavily. This is how we control those data layers showing. And then on chapter enter, we could do things, but we're just going to probably not need those at all. Great. So let's go in and let's start building a chapter. So, right, a chapter is going to be an object. So we use those little curly braces. We need ID. And actually, in our downloads, you might as well open 1.txt because we can just work through this for what we're trying to do. So here we see a title. It's going to be Earth, right? So I'll just put Earth, comma, right? So in after the quotes, we'll say alignment. And this takes a keyword, even though it's still a string. So left, I'm going to put in. What else? I'm going to put in a title. And this is Neotropical Migrants. This is going to be kind of an introductory paragraph. And then we have our description. So let me cut and paste this. And I'll put description, right? I'll put single quotes and do that. Look at the red here. Why? Because there's actually a single quote in the text, right? So I could have solved that by putting this in a, right, double quotes, or, right, I could definitely solve it by just escaping this quote right here that's in the text. I also want to change some of this, a little bit of HTML here. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little break tag in after the word America. And then I'm going to make this last line bold by using just the B tag, right? That'll naturally have all browsers style that B tag with bold. So that's what that's going to look like. I'll save it. Going through, then we have to start setting our location object. So let's go back to the information here. And let's look at what a location is, right? So a location is, right, it's going to be another object. I don't know why it says string for all these. It's an object. So we'll go down here. After this, oops, forgot the comma. Say location and start a new object, right? Location is going to be an object. And we need center. Oops. We see centers required. So we have in our thing here, right? This is the center. Now, you have to pass this in as an array. So this one is longitude, latitude, which is kind of the opposite of what we've been doing in some other things, comma, let's set a zoom. So our zoom is going to be 2. Now, we could set other things here, and in other ones, I'll point out some other things we can do, such as bearing, right? Map, animation, fly to, right? And comma. The last thing is on chapter end. On chapter end, right? And so this is an array. So again, an array takes, right, these little brackets. And this is going to be just a few different little objects. So I'm going to cut and paste these and then just explain them to you, right? So this is, again, everything's prescribed here. Like, we're not like guessing what to do. So in the documentation, it tells you it takes layers. We can also pass in a duration. But what we want to do on this first one is just, even though we set them all opacity to 0, the best bet I found with this template is to start on your very first thing hiding and showing which ones you're going to be using in your project. So we have 3 custom data layers. If you remember, we named them breeding range, winter range, and migration route. And so I'm just passing in an opacity of 0. And so opacity is always from 0 to 1, 1 being fully opaque, and 0 being fully transparent. So that's all I need to have a started config. I'm going to come out. By now, hopefully all of our data has processed. Yep, all mine is published and processed. So now let's go up here and hit refresh and see what the problem is. There's already a source with the map. I'm going to pause this video and come right back. That was a perfect storm of problems. So what was going on there? The first thing was that my, oh God, I want to show that page. My token was messed up somehow. I had to delete my token, make a new one, enable it in localhost, and I just didn't even put in the HTTPS this time. I just put localhost, even though my other tokens are set up with HTTP. A second thing I learned, even though I was trying this out before, but I'd been typing these things, even though the documentation says they're not required, in our location, we are going to always have to put a pitch. So we'll go ahead and put that pitch to 0. Let's put our bearing to 0 as well. Hit save, and there we go. I finally have my map working. So there we go. Another thing I forgot to put is I wanted to put an image in here. Let's put an image. I'll put it above location. Let's keep all this stuff here. Right? Is it im or image? Let's find out through the documentation. Right? So we'll go over here. It's image written all the way out. So image. And we need to get our image. So I'm going to put images slash, it's going to be called bird.ping, but we don't actually have it in here. So over here, I'm going to add a new folder. I'm going to call it images. I'm going to go back to my desktop. I'm actually going to get rid of assets because we no longer need the sample assets. And in images, I'm going to take the bird.ping that somehow is missing from this folder. But I have it also over here, and I will fix the folder before I upload it to Icon. Example, scroll back. See, I've already done everything once, right? So let's go to bird.ping. I'll throw it there just to make my life easier. Where's it going? Over here. There we go. Birds.ping. Right, hit save, go back, take a look at our work. It's missing it. Well, there it is right there, birds. I didn't put an S in it. Boy, this is going to be a long one just because I keep messing up here. Let's go here. There we are. We are back on track now. Look at this. We've got that all set up. Again, this is just development. This is like what you do as you write code. It takes forever because of these dumb mistakes. All right, so now we need to start putting in more chapters. So I have, maybe I'll build it on the web page. For right now, though, I have all these just text things here. So I'm going to go into this other chapters.txt. I'll provide all this stuff, but maybe I'll also just embed it all on the web page. So let's make a second one. So for the second one, let's just grab all of this right here, this information. See, I did write pitch and bearing and all these. I don't know why I thought you didn't have to when I started making the video. Let's go back to here, right? So after our object, we need a comma, and now we'll put in another object. I just don't like the indentation. I like to keep my indentation so I can understand where things are, right? So that is there. Okay. So we see here we're going to add in the breeding range. So remember how we put these to 0? We next want to show the breeding range, right? So we're going to have to turn on that layer. So let's just kind of see what we have. We go to here, and it brings us here, but we want to turn on that awesome layer, data layer we made. And so we do that with the on chapter enter that we used above, right? We make it into an array with the brackets. And now we are going to, let me see my notes here. We're going to turn on the breeding range. We're going to make it 0.6 opacity so we still see the map behind it. And we're going to add this duration, right? So this duration is how long does it take to kind of transition from whatever thing you're transitioning. We'll paste that in there. And now when we go, right, we go from seeing the whole world So then we like point out, this is the breeding range. See, super simple if you don't mess up as many times as me. So we'll move on, right? Number 3, we'll grab this stuff, right? We already have the comma from that last one. I'll just fix my alignment for my own sanity's sake. And then we go to on chapter. So we see here, we're just changing the center, we're changing the zoom. We're not changing the pitch and the bearing yet. We're leaving the map animation fly to in there, why not? So on chapter end, what are we gonna do? We're gonna hide the breeding range. So I'm gonna grab this, and I'm gonna copy it, and I'm just gonna take the opacity, make it 0, and I'm gonna make a copy of it. I'm gonna change this to winter range. I'll take the opacity, I'll leave it at 06, and I'll let it go 802. Save that one, right? So then we'll just try it out, right? So we went to breeding range. Oh, there we go. We got to our winter range. All right. So now we've got a bunch of other ones. So let me just grab these for us, and let's just cut and paste them as is, and I won't make you write all of these. And so, right, we got a comma there. We got that. And, boy, what do we got going on here? Did I mess something up? I did. Let's just make sure I put it here. Copy, paste. On chapter end. Did I not get everything? Oops, you got to watch. Look, I messed up. I didn't get the whole thing here. I'm going to make sure I get all of this. Right? You always want to be careful, especially cutting and pasting. There we go. Again, I'm just going to, for sanity's sake, fix the indentation here. Close enough. And so you'll see we have, let's just see what we've wound up doing here, right? Winter range. Now I'm showing the routes, right? So if you notice, right, on this one, we've hidden the winter range. We've changed the opacity of the migration route. Then here, we turned off the migration route and we went to the Yucatan Peninsula. And look at us looking out across it across the Gulf of Mexico, which is really big and we couldn't see across it, but sure. And then this last one is we're going to fly over the Gulf, right? So if we do that, boom, it goes fast. Why don't we slow that down a little bit so we feel more like a bird trying to traverse, right? So it's like, instead of so fast, we can handle that with a speed call, right? So we have it here. So first, let's also point where we're flying. So instead of leaving our bearing at 0, we're going to change it to 15, right? 0 is north. Due east is 90. South 180. 270 for west, right? So it's a 360-degree circle. But you don't use the number 360, you use the number 0. So we'll point a little more towards Florida with a bearing of 15. And then we're going to change the speed we go to that location. So I'm going to say speed, and let's just slow it down to let's go 0.1, even though my thing says 0.05, to see how it goes here. So we come down, we look at the Yucatan, and now it's like, oh, we're traversing slowly over the thing. That might be a little too slow, right? The speed is, it's like a multiplier, right? So whatever's the default speed it has, maybe that is a little slow. Let's put this up to 2.25, right? And that way we get there, Yucatan Peninsula, and now let's go over. We're gonna land in Tallahassee, right? Okay, moving on to what we have in here, right? Oh, let's put in some obstacles. Now birds, right? Birds are nocturnal migrants. They hit buildings, especially buildings that are lit up at night for whatever reason. You think they'd avoid them, but they don't really look forward, I guess, when they're flying. I guess they do. I don't know anything about it. So I'm going to copy it and, put it here and paste. I mean, I do know about it. I just don't feel like explaining it. So we'll put in that, right? So that's our next location. So we're going to go across the Gulf. And, we'll go into Atlanta. Now look at that. Look at those cool buildings. So Mapbox, when you get close enough to any city, it tries to use data of buildings and tries to, sometimes it has elevation data of like cities and things. Like we could do Iowa City and we would see some various elevations of buildings. We wouldn't see the cool kind of like design buildings the way it does for big cities. But also you got to change the pitch, right? So I put this pitch very pitchy at 80, right? So we've really changed the pitch, right? Because if I put this pitch at 0, right, we would just be on top of Atlanta, and so we wouldn't see the buildings here. But by putting it to 80, right, we kind of enable that kind of elevation pitch thing going on, and that's really cool. Let's do another cool thing. There's another property we can add to a chapter, and if we go look, I showed it to you here at the beginning, but you probably don't remember it. Rotate animation. So I'm going to rotate animation, and this I'm just going to put the keyword of true. And now, when we go to our buildings, right, once it stops and the person's reading the information here, right, it will allegedly, right, all right, another error fixed, right? So it seems like this rotate, if you're going to add this, you definitely have to at least name this on chapter enter. Notice there's nothing in it. The best I can guess is if I went reading through the index code here is that it's actually pushing this into this, right? So that is something that's not documented. You would just have to figure it out just like I did. So now when we add this, and I changed the text document to reflect that. So when we come here, right, we're going to go across the Gulf, and then we're going to go into our buildings. And then good old Atlanta, Hotlanta will go ahead and rotate. All right. Whew, this one's a toughie, right? Again, some of these things are just not documented. All right, our next one is going to be a mountain terrain. So let's copy this. Hope there's no errors. Put it next. As always, I'm just going to fix that up just a little bit here to keep it somewhat aligned. Hit save. Go check it out, right? So we're going to go through Atlanta. Then we're going to go to the mountains. Now, right now, the mountains look pretty boring. But again, Mapbox has this feature stuff here going on. So we can go in and set a configuration object. So we have to go back up to, well, we don't actually have to go back top. It's just handier to do it. Before chapters, we're going to put use 3D terrain. Now, I got caught last time doing this, right? Don't capitalize D, but do capitalize T. And we'll just turn that to true, put a comma under it. And now when we look, we should get some mountainous looking mountains. There we go. That is a nice 3D looking mountain. Maybe we could find a better place. Before I move on, I realize I skipped over how am I finding these places? And so maybe when I teach this live, I'll put this a little earlier. I did give you a link, and Mapbox has this thing called the location helper. And so here, right, we can look for a thing, right, if we want to find Iowa City, right? So we kind of see what we're going to be dealing with here. That's what Iowa City looks like. Then I, of course, can zoom in. I can use these buttons. I'm on a trackpad, so I pinch and zoom. I don't know how you do it without a trackpad other than this. There must be a way. I do know that there is control. If you hit control, right, you can change the pitch, then as we zoom. So next thing, right, let's finish off our story. And so you see here, we can just finish it off with what I have here. The last two, we'll enter it, go down to the bottom, right, put it here. Always just be careful, right, with your commas and things to make sure that everything's closed the right way. What did I do there? Right, there we go. Save. And our last couple of things after the mountains, right, we go into our kind of just show them where they're getting up to their breeding range. And the last thing is we're like, hey, we got to turn around and go back again, right? So you notice what I did here is I took that pitch and I made it to that bearing, I'm sorry, not pitch, into 180 degrees. And that is making the scroll map. So just like we've done before, you have to then embed it into Tilda. And you're going to want to use an iframe for this, definitely, right? Let's go back to VS Code. In case you don't remember how to do this, we go to our source control. We initialize a repository. We'll call this init to initialize. We will publish our branch, right? We're going to make it a public, right? It's called scroll map because that's what we called our thing there. Uh-oh, here's a big problem. It says it failed and try pull. That's actually not the problem here. Let's open the Git log. So here's the thing, right? If we look at the log here of what happened, what it's trying to do is save you from yourself. Those access keys you really need to keep secret. When you're making a public repository, it's obviously not a secret. And that's exactly why we limited it to only being able to be seen on localhost and our subdomain on GitHub pages, right? So it won't push it unless you actually tell it, yeah, we're fine. So you actually have to find this line right here. If you want to allow the secret, right, let's go to this link right here. Copy. Let's go here. And it says, hey, it was blocked because there was this secret access token. And you're like, here you can kind of just tell it, like, you know, what's going on. And I'll just put it's used in tests, right? Because it's not going to do any damage. We limit it only to our particular things. Allow me to expose the secret. And now I can go back and publish the branch. There we go. And now we have everything right in the world. Now we can mosey back over to our GitHub account, find our scroll map that we just pushed up there. We have to go to settings. We have to go to, right, make it a pages, right? So we go to GitHub pages. We publish the main. We save that. Right, so that's going to be published. Again, it usually takes a couple seconds. That's okay, because we got to go put it in our tilde page. So let's go to tilde. Let's log in. Let's find our page, right? Now I actually already have it logged in here, put in here. Now here's the thing, right? So I'm going to delete this, right? Actually, I'm going to leave this one here because I want to leave that one there because I'm going to delete the other one when I'm done. So we're going to put in a custom HTML page or HTML block, edit the content. Now we could just put it in iframe, right? The problem with just putting it in iframe, and we can make it, right, what we want is it to be 100% wide and 100% of the browser high. Now with iframes, sometimes as we're scrolling down, that can screw up things. So if I want to put in a full height iframe that doesn't start moving until the person gets to that iframe, we have to do a little JavaScript. So I actually have for you a little JavaScript I already have. Where is my thing here, right? So we go into our Scrolly assets, and if you find embed.txt, you're going to see here, right? What I've done is I've wrote some styles here that are going to be applied. So basically it's like, we're making this wrapping div. So you see there's this wrapping div called scroll map embed. We're going to make that 100% width and 100% height using VH, vertical height. Then we're going to set our iframe stuff that we usually set with the style tag just up here for convenience. Then there's just this little stuff that basically says, hey, see how we have this pointer events none? Basically don't allow us to do anything, interact with our iframe until it hits the top of the browser window. And that will ensure that we see all 100 of the height, right? So all we have to do is cut and paste this. And back in tilde, put that in. And of course you need to change the source to your GitHub page. So mine is kevinripka-uiowa.github.io/ right. It's going to be scroll map, right? Is the name of it. Hit save and close. Publish.